Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, and Senator Peters, for having this very important hearing. Commandant, thank you for being here. Good to see you again. I just want to say, for the record, that the fishermen of the state of Massachusetts would like to thank the commander of District 1, Admiral Stephen Poulin, for his great work, and everyone in his division for the work and the safety that they provide on a daily basis. On December 20th, 2004, the Northern Edge, a New Bedford-based scallop vessel, sank and 6 fishermen were lost at sea. The Coast Guard conducted a 43-hour search, but only 1 fisherman, unfortunately, survived. This tragic loss was the worst accident since the tragedy depicted in the famous movie A Perfect Storm, where the Andrea Gale of Gloucester sank in 1991. The sinking of the Northern Edge prompted the Massachusetts-based Fishing Partnership Support Services to create a safety and survival training program to train fishermen on man-overboard procedures, emergency communications, flooding and pump operation, and other skills to be able to act quickly in emergency situations so that these tragedies do not reoccur. These trainings are heavily valued by fishermen and have spread from coast to coast. The safety and survival trainings are life-saving and also save the Coast Guard millions in resources. However, these programs do not have stable funding. They have been appropriated funds, but only on a year-by-year basis, and fishermen need to have the assurance that these programs will be funded every year. The 2-day search for the Northern Edge costs over $1.5 million. While we all agree that the Coast Guard search and rescue missions are essential, we should work to stop these tragic events before they happen. And that's what these training programs are designed to do. Commandant, can you speak to the importance of having safety programs in place and how having consistent training supported by constant funding would help the Coast Guard's budget?
Senator, you're a strong advocate of prevention, and so we don't have to respond. And so anything that takes us out of the business of having to respond and preventing, providing these mariners with the wherewithal to operate, and again, up off the Grand Banks in the winter times, it's a hazardous operating environment. So it's absolutely critical. It used to be called the deadliest catch in Alaska. But I would say, we've seen more fatalities of late off the Pacific Northwest, but no different. Cold water, extreme weather, and this training, if it saves one life, I said earlier in this hearing, you can't put a dollar value on a life. And I think consistent funding, if it saves lives, is money well spent.
So just moving on, in response to our hearing last March, you stated that only Class 2 Coast Guard vessels are equipped with naloxone, Narcan, and that Coast Guard commanders are assessing the opioid threat in their local area to identify any high-risk areas, populations, and risk of exposure. Have you identified any high-risk areas, and what are you doing to encourage other classes of Coast Guard vessels to be equipped with Narcan?
Thank you for that question, Senator. We have since moved on, and we are putting this out to all field units in the Coast Guard. Yeah, we have an epidemic on our hands right now, so this is Coast Guard-wide, not one tier of ships. It could be in a fishing fleet, a recreational boater. There's no community that is exempt to this epidemic.
So since March, you have created
sir.
a program that covers all of those classes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, excellent. And of course, the Coast Guard can't perform their life-saving work if they can't navigate our nation's rivers and channels and harbors. For some communities in Massachusetts, Essex, Plymouth, Gloucester, Newburyport, the waterways are filling up with so much sand that Coast Guard vessels cannot safely pass. Many of these waterways are federally owned, and it's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers' responsibility to dredge these waterways to ensure the swift and safe passage of ships. Has the backlog of Corps dredging projects harmed the Coast Guard's ability to perform its critical functions?
The Army Corps was a key partner when we reopened numerous ports following this year's hurricane season. And in the interim, We would reset aids to navigation where there was survey work. We knew there was shallow water, but it still allowed ships, boats to safely pass as we remarked waters as they addressed some of those shoaling activities. I can't address what the backlog is in the Army Corps of Engineers, but what I can say is they have been a reliable partner as we look to reconstitute ports.
But from your perspective, it would be better if there were dredging process of funding in order to ensure that sand was cleared out so that you could do your job even better.
Certainly, if there's shoaling, absolutely critical for us to be able to carry out our missions.
Thank you. Thank you for your good work and all the people who work for you. Thank you, sir.